it's Mo. It is October 8th, and this weekend was the VNA rummage sale, which is a rummage sale that happens to support the Visiting Nurse Association 2 times a year near me in New Jersey. And it's this huge rummage sale, and it's totally cool, and I usually go twice a year if I can, and one of the reasons I love to go is because they have so many books. Now, I'm currently on a book buying ban, and this is a book acquiring ban check-in today, as well as my haul from the VNA and surrounding times. My book acquiring ban, I started earlier this year, kind of in the middle of the year. I think I actually started in August, but there were some caveats. Not only was I not supposed to be acquiring any books, but if I did acquire a book, I had to unhaul a book from my current TBR, so the new book could be a replacement for that book. I have acquired a couple of books that way, but my caveat for the book acquiring ban was that there were some book sales that I really wanted to go to. One in September, and you will have already seen the video about that and my check-in for my book acquiring ban, and this VNA book sale, which I just went to, and you will see now. Last month in September, I kind of made an additional rule that I could acquire books like the whole week of the sale, and my current week started for the VNA last Wednesday, so I still have a couple of days. I might still acquire a couple of books if I happen to find them. I'm not like taking that week to go out and buy books, but I am taking that week that if I see a book that I want, like in a little free library, or if I happen to be in a thrift store or a used bookstore, then I can pick them up. So my week is still going. I might add a couple of books to this book haul, but first I wanted to talk about how I think my book acquiring ban is going from September to now. So in September, I talked about how I thought it was going then, and I made that kind of add-on caveat, and I'm going to make an add-on caveat and tell you about a new development this video as well. So far, I think my book acquiring ban is going okay. I have been avoiding thrift stores. I have been avoiding book sales. I have been avoiding used bookstores and little free libraries, and that's kind of the point, right? Like, I don't like to avoid those things. I don't like to, discipline myself to not have to find books, but I have so many books that I need to do that a little bit. I can't just acquire books at the rate that I was acquiring them. And I think if we go through at the end of the year and look at the months that I was on this ban, even months that had book sales, there will be many less books acquired than the months that I was not on this ban. It's happening, it's working, I'm acquiring less books, but I'm not really like enjoying acquiring less books. And I'm definitely not enjoying having to swap out books if I find a book that I really do want to get from my existing TBR. So I have done that, and I continue to do that. I did a try chapter to assess some books that I can get rid of. I took a hard look at some of the books that I have and decided that some of them are not for me. I also have another couple of stacks of books that I can do a try chapter with that hopefully are not for me as well. So I have a little wiggle room, and that is okay. But something that I started doing between September and October is allowing myself like one book a week that if I find it, I can acquire it and not do a corresponding unhaul. I think that one book a week is like not the worst, especially when I was acquiring multiple tens of books a week prior to this book acquiring ban. The new development is that I heard of another book sale. It is the Asbury Park Cooperative Book Sale, which is for members. Well, it's for everyone, and all their used books are $5, where usually they're a range anywhere from $1 to $15 or $20 for used books. And all their used books that were $5 and above are going to be $5, but for members, they're only $1. So I am a member. I joined earlier this year, and I will be taking advantage of that book sale because they do have a lot of good books. They really curate their used books, and I've been to the bookstore a couple of times and not picked up used books because of my book acquiring ban, so I think it's only right that I go and acquire some books at that sale. That sale happens on the 29th, I believe, and the rest rest of the month of October, I am going to continue my book acquiring ban, and between the 29th or whenever I start my week for that book sale, I'm not going to acquire any books. And that is going to also count that I can't have my like freebie each week. Does this all making sense? I don't know. In my head, it makes sense. And in my head, it's giving me a balance of allowing me to get a book every now and then. It's allowing me to go to certain book sales without allowing me or encouraging me to just get books all the time and acquiring way too many books. The next sale that there is going to be in December. For hopefully the entire month of November, I am not going to be acquiring any books, but I will give myself that freebie of one book a month, and I will continue if there really is a book that I need to acquire for some reason. I can correspond and unhaul from my existing TBR. Some of the books that I even acquired in the last book sale or in the VNA book sale in this batch, there are a couple that like if I see a book that I like more, I could unhaul that one and bring in a book that I like more. Another thing that this challenge has made me really focus on is trying to get books that I really want, or I really have been wanting to read, or that I feel like I can't pass up. So there have been numerous times that I've seen books that are very popular, or I think I can get at another time at a little free library, that I've passed up, whereas occasionally there's a hyped book that I'm like, oh, I want to read that like right now, so I will pick it up and I will read it soon after getting it. I think it's just changed my mentality a little bit about how I pick up the books, which books I pick up, when I'm looking for them, because I'm really trying to pick and choose and be careful about what I get. But the other side of that is that when I'm at a book sale and I kind of have free range, yes, I'm trying to look critically at the books that I really want and that I really think I'll read, but sometimes I go a little nuts. So there are some books in my stack that maybe were not the best choices. Maybe I didn't make the best decisions on. And those are ones that potentially I can unhaul. So let's get into the haul. The first book that I have, I actually got at a little free library this week, and it is Water Song by Clarissa Gonawan. And this I actually don't know anything about. It just seemed interesting. I think I read the blurb on the back, and I definitely recognize this author's name. I did look her up after I brought this book home, but it's been a few days now, and I can't remember what else she wrote, but if I think of it, I will let you know. I found The Fortune Men by Nadifa Mohammed. This one was, I think, longlisted maybe for the Booker or the International Booker recently, and I, again, think that this is like a heist book, but I don't really know the premise, but I knew that I was interested in it when I saw it in that prize list, so I did pick that up. At the used book sale, I found The Mad Hatter Mystery by John Dickinson Carr. I read a John Dickinson Carr earlier this year, and I really liked it, so I thought I would pick up another of his. I don't know if this is in the same series or not. It also has, you know, an incredible vintage cover. I picked up Patricia Highsmith's The Talented Mr. Ripley. I've seen the movie of this, but I've never read the book, and I've never owned a copy, so when I saw a copy at the used book sale, I definitely wanted to grab it. A lot of these books weren't on my want to read list. A couple were, but some of them I had either heard of but not put on my want to read, or some of them, like The Talented Mr. Ripley, are books I know I want to acquire when I see it because I know I want to get to it eventually, so I just pick it up. These are in no particular order. The next book I found at a little free library, and it was one that was on my want to read list. This has actually been on my want to read list since 2021. This is not my favorite cover. It is Luck and Booth by Jenny Fagan, and I think that this might have some magical realism, but it all revolves around one like apartment building or one housing complex. It sounded really interesting to me. A book that might not make the cut if I find a better book is The City and the City by China Mielville. This is a, I think, noir fantasy crime novel. I know that that is what this author is known for, and I have had other books of his a long time ago that I never read. I think that they're very like fantasy-esque and usually quite long. This one is on the shorter side. I think it's only like 350 pages, and the premise sounded really interesting, but if I have to make a cut, this one might go. And at that same Goodwill, this was totally a cover buy, and it is called California Fever, a novel. It is by John J. Jacobson. Never heard of this. I have no idea what it's about. love the cover, and so I'm willing to give it a try. It's also very short. At a little free library, I found And I Do Not Forgive You by Amber Sparks. This is a collection of short stories. I think that they're a little bit horror, a little bit weird. Apparently the person who had this before me only got this far into it. This is one that I might put in a try a chapter or try a story, because I've never heard of this author. I'm not a huge short story person, but the weird premise kind of got me. But maybe I would want to try the story and see if I like the writing to continue. Another random pick from a little free library is The Puma Years, a memoir by Laura Coleman. This is about a young British woman who I think has like a quarter-year crisis and decides to go work with animals. The real reason that I picked this one was the cover. It's beautiful. And also there's a quote on the cover by Jane Goodall, and I really enjoy Jane Goodall's work. I've read some of her books and I've seen her live, and she's really interesting. So if she is recommending this book, I thought I would give it a try. This might be another good one for like a nonfiction try a chapter. I haven't done one of those in a while. From the VNA used book sale, I got These Ghosts Are Family by Maisie Card. This was on my want to read list, and I think it's an intergenerational tale of women. That's all I really know about it. There must be something else to have made me want to pick it up though, because I don't really like books like that, so there was probably something else. Next, I got Reservation Blues by Sherman Alexie. This was at the book sale as well. These might all be book sale books from here on out. I've been wanting to read some Sherman Alexie. He's a well-known American Indigenous author, and this one actually sounded super interesting. It's about Robert Johnson, who is a blues player who was supposedly in real life sold his soul to the devil to become a better blues player. And I think this takes his time where he had disappeared selling his soul, weaves a story around him visiting a reservation. Sounds so up my alley. Next, I picked up The Mind Murders by John Wellen Van Wettering. I have another book by this author, but it's a collection of short stories. Just sounds interesting. He does like the Inspector Sato novels. I had never heard of them previous to picking up that short story collection, but I want to give them a try. I'm more likely to read a novel in a series, even if it's out of order, than I am a short story collection. I picked up The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. I really wanted to read this on audio, but I did not like the audio narration, so I grabbed a physical copy. I picked up Whale Day by Billy Collins. I've read one other of Billy Collins' poetry collections, and I've picked up a couple more this year, so I kept going and got another one. I think I actually saw this one on audio too. I've never read poetry on audio, so I think it would be interesting to listen to that and read along with the physical copy. Another book of poetry I got at the library sale was Pocahontas, and this is poems by Tamye Timble. She is a Maori author. I've never read a book by a Maori author, so a poetry collection seems like a good place to start. I picked up A Woman's Story by Annie Ernaux. She's a famous French writer. I've wanted to try something from her. So many booktubers that I love her work. This is just the first one that I found. I believe this one is a nonfiction about her mother dying. I picked up The Enchanter by Vladimir Nabokov. I've only read one Vladimir Nabokov, but I keep picking up his work. This is kind of a predecessor to Lolita. It was a short story along a lot of the same themes and became part of the inspiration for Lolita. So I'm interested to try this one out, although I bet it'll be harrowing. Next, I have New Orleans Noir. I don't recognize any of the authors from this short story collection all about New Orleans mystery stories, but the editor is Julie Smith. She does have a story in here as well, so I do recognize her. And I love Julie Smith's Skip Langdon series, so I wanted to grab this one. For my vintage Christie collection, I picked up Murder on the Orient Express. I don't actually have a lot of copies of this one, and this was a great vintage cover. I picked up Miss Iceland, which I've definitely seen online and had a vague idea that I was interested in it, but when I went to my want to read, it wasn't on there. I am not sure of the particulars of this book, but I'll find out when I read it. I picked up Satin Island, partly as a cover grab and partly because it was a finalist for the Booker Prize, and I have been working my way through my Booker books, and when I see a Booker book, sometimes I just grab one. This one did sound really interesting when I read the back, but of course, That was yesterday, and I already can't remember what it's about. All right, last 4 books. I have A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. Meg with Books loves this series, and she suggested reading it on audio, which I have found a free audio of this, but I figured if I liked it, I might want the first one. Then I got New Jersey Cape May, a noir novel. This is by William Bear, and I got this solely because it was an independent author writing about New Jersey, and it was a mystery. It seems very easy to read, quick to get through. I'm excited for this one. Another book that I got because it had registered something with me, I've definitely heard about it, is My Monticello by Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. This is about descendants of the children that were had by Thomas Jefferson and his slave, and I think it's like a multi-generational story. I remember reading that synopsis, loving the cover, but not really being super interested in that story. This is one that could go in a try chapter, or maybe I will just end up unhauling it for something that I want more, but I could always give it a try. The last 2 books are Down Among the Sticks and Bones. This is actually a proof copy by Shauna McGuire. I didn't realize until I brought this one home that I have a copy of this one already. I haven't read any of the Wayward Children series yet, but I really want to, so I've been collecting them when I find them. Of course, I haven't found the first one yet, but I have a copy of this one, so this is going to be like an instant unhaul, although I'm going to keep it on my pile in case I need an extra unhaul. And the other one that I might unhaul immediately is Black Like Me by John Howard Griffin. This is about a white man who disguises himself as a black man in the middle of the 20th century and goes to the segregated American South to see what the black experience actually is. I looked this up to see if it was controversial or it was noted as being something that is racist or anti-black, and I only saw good things about it. I didn't see anybody saying that this was a bad idea, but there is something disturbing about a white man disguising himself as a black man. So I don't know if this is one that I'm just gonna right away unhaul or I'm going to keep and possibly read one day. I will have to do a little bit more research. So those are the books that I got at the VNA sale. I did pick up a few more books this week in my free week from my book buying ban. Some of these were at a Goodwill and some of them were from little free libraries. I do also have some book mail. At the Goodwill near my house, I got The Disappearing Act by Catherine Steadman. I've read one Catherine Steadman. I have 2 others. I think with this one I have all of her books now. So this was 99 cents and unfortunately it is a large print edition. So it's possible that I will read this and then unhaul it, or if I find another copy of it, I'll just unhaul it. I found a YA contemporary romance, or contemporary with a romance theme, which is The Music of What Happens. And I loved the cover of this. I thought it was really pretty and it just seemed like an interesting premise. 2 young men falling in love, but they both have things that they're struggling with in their lives. This is one that I'll probably try a chapter. I'm not really a YA reader, but I did read Darius the Great Is Not Okay, which is a contemporary young adult story about a queer boy. So I did enjoy that one a lot, so I thought I would give this one a try. The Music of What Happens is by Bill Koningsberg. I also got The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson and an introduction by A.M. Holmes. I don't know A.M. Holmes' work, but I have heard their name before in the horror realms. I'm interested to read the introduction and see what their writing is like as well. I've been keeping my eye out for more Shirley Jackson just in general. I'm sure I read The Lottery a very long time ago. I vaguely remember what it's about. Well, I remember what it's about, but I vaguely remember the story itself. Happy to have more Shirley Jackson to read. I read The Haunting on Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle last year, and I loved both of those. I got Jack London, The Sea Wolf and Other Stories. Mostly I got this because it's an awesome vintage cover. I like Jack London's short stories a lot. I have a huge collection of Jack London stories on my read shelf, some of which I've read, some of which I haven't. So I got this to kind of sit on my shelf, but I'm interested to read the stories as well. It probably just won't go on my TBR. Then I got Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. I had actually seen this in a little free library a few months ago and I passed it up, but then when I came home I realized it was on my want to read list, so I picked it up from the Goodwill. And lastly from the Goodwill, I got Touch the Earth, which is a self-portrait of Indian existence. And I think this is all like Northwestern Native American stories as compiled by T.C. McLunn. This just seemed really interesting. It has lots of beautiful illustrations. It seems like they range from like a short paragraph, a short story, true story of their lives to a few pages long. So this one sounded really cool to me. And then at a little free library, I got The Last Unicorn by Peter C. Beagle. I've been wanting to read this one. I grew up with that movie, of course, terrifying and beautiful, but I never read the book. I did get some book mail. I keep forgetting to open it, so I'm happy to open it now with you. I keep wanting to open it because it would be perfect to read in October for spooky season, because this is The Reformatory by Tana Reeve Dew. I won this in a Goodreads contest. This is a proof, it looks like, of this story. I did not realize it was so long. It's really long. It's, woo, almost 600 pages, which does not sound like a me book at all. I just know that I've been really interested in reading Tana Reeve Dew's work for a while now, and this one did sound really good. I think it's kind of a haunted house or haunted building. Despite it being 600 pages, font is huge. I mean, it's almost as big as the large print font, and it does seem like there's quite a bit of like dialogue. Hopefully this one seems intimidating, but won't necessarily be. This is the second giveaway I've run, and I haven't read the first book that I won in a Goodreads giveaway, so maybe I'll try to read those both for like a vlog. So those were the last of the books that I got during my free book acquiring week, where I can acquire whatever books that I want, and then I will go back on my book buying ban, and like I said, for the end of October from today, which is October 11th until the 28th or 9th, whenever that book sale is, I'm not going to be acquiring any books, hopefully. But if I do have a couple that I could swap out. So let me know if you've ever done a book buying ban or acquiring ban. Let me know what your thoughts on like the rules of book acquiring bans are, and how often you're allowed to like break those rules or modify those rules. Let me know if your book acquiring ban made you feel good or made you feel bad. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!